G'day, guys. Welcome back to the GDS Nbl Podcast. It is week 5 already. And I tell you what, boys, it was a lot bigger than last week. Only 4 games a week before where Boz and I knocked out the previous potty, but double the games this week. And we do have our good brother back. Vernsy, welcome back. We certainly missed you last week. How have you been over last week and a bit, brother?
Yeah, look, I've been good. Not too much basketball, unfortunately, but there's so much to watch this week, and I love it. I love the idea of 2 games basically every night. That's just, I'm here for it.
You're a sicko. You're getting your basketball fix, aren't you, Vernsy? It's good times at the moment, and GDS, we'll talk about that in a little bit. Boz, how about yourself, brother? How's your week been?
Yeah, week's been good, DR. Thanks for asking. Just a big shout out to you. Happy birthday for yesterday. I know you were saying before you don't like to celebrate, but I think it's really important we do acknowledge that. But yeah, similar to Verns, really loving the Ignite Cup that's bringing NBL to us on a Wednesday now. So there's really only, 2 days of the week where we're not getting NBL, and that's just a dream for us that, love the game.
Absolutely. It does make it more difficult to produce content, doesn't it? Because there's a pretty quick or short turnaround. We were trying to get together last night, but things just didn't happen. But we are here tonight to pump out this one. Now, we'll quickly go over our results from this week. And boys, I'll tell you what, now there is skill involved in this game, and then there is absolute luck. Somehow, the GDS gods have shined down very kindly on me this week and given me an equal first finish just for the round in the starter comp. So you can see there, I'm technically 4th. I'm not sure. You can see there's 5 teams there that finished on 655 points, myself being one of them. So very privileged there. I do have a 3-player common pack to open as well as a 1-player common pack at the end of the video. Boz, I believe that you may have one too as well, my friend, but I'm not sure if there's anything on top of that or how it's going to work. Fingers crossed there, maybe some funds thrown into the account there, but we'll see how we go. But yeah, extremely lucky this week, boys, and I'll talk about the squad maybe a little bit later when we're looking to talk about what we're going to do this week with our teams. Vernsy, how did you go, mate? Any fantastic results across any of the competitions for yourself?
Oh, look, nothing fantastic across any competition. The last few weeks I've been pretty bang on with my overall rank. I think standard I came 40th this week. My overall rank's 39th. So last couple of weeks really just staying where I am, unfortunately. But yeah, a big letdown for me. I went Doolittle, who dropped a fat 10 for us this week. I generally think I nailed the other 9, but just getting one player wrong, it hurts so much, especially in this scale of things where it's like a 10. Even a bad premium's putting out probably 50 plus, so it's a lot of points to lose. I'd gone Cooks the last couple of weeks and he'd barely scratched a 20 for me, and then this week he goes 72 and I move him out for Doolittle, who gets a 10. So can't seem to get that power forward position right. I'm fed up with it, honestly.
It's hard to get some consistency. Now, luckily, and I think this went a huge way, and you nailed it right there with what you said, Verns. I did play Cooks this week. So the fact that I had Cooks in that position over your Doolittle, and look, historically, based on what they've produced this season, Doolittle's the pick that you most likely go with here. That's what I mean. It's a bit of the luck of the draw type stuff, but I did keep faith with Xavier this week. So very, very lucky. And talk about keeping faith. Now, if you tuned into last week's podcast, we were talking about the little dynamo from New Zealand, PJC, and Boz is a big PJC fan, maybe the biggest PJC fan on the planet. And he told us all, keep the faith with the man. And I tell you what, you would have been just proud, wouldn't you, Boz, with his performance over the weekend?
Absolutely, yeah. Friday night was, not Friday night, sorry. They played on Wednesday night, I should say. Yeah, Wednesday night was just one of the best watches ever. I got home from work at like 5:30 on the dot. It started at 5:30 because it was getting played in New Zealand. So, yeah, sat on the couch and just watched 2 hours of absolute just genius basketball. Congrats to PJC on breaking the assist record in the 40-minute era of the NBL. He's such a good player. And I guess he's shown now that, he's at a point in his career where the team he's on, it doesn't really allow him to score as much. I think teams have worked him out really well. But he just shows how good his game is. He can literally get 17 assists on nights that his teammates are actually hitting baskets. So, yeah, shout out to my man PJC. And I'm glad that so many of you guys obviously locked him into your side and kept the faith as well as I did.
Big difference maker. Now we can see here with the classic results for the round. Number 19, Mr. Whiskers. So going all right there in the contender comp, in the classic comp. How'd you go in the other couple of comps, mate? Any decent results this round?
No, not compared to the last few weeks. I think similar to Verns, Doolittle stumped me. I don't have a John Brown. I don't have really anyone else to play there. So for me, I had to kind of lock Doolittle into at least one or two of my sides. And that just meant that, for those starter and contender comps, that one kind of score really set me back. Whereas my classic, I was actually able to play McVeigh and Cooks and avoid Doolittle, and obviously that shows in my results. So, a bit stiff there on Doolittle, but what can you do?
Exactly right. It makes such a difference, that one player, that 50-50 selection, big things in GDS as well. All right, boys, let's start to review some teams. Now, we're going to do it a little bit differently this week, given the fact there are so many games. Rather than go through game-by-game reviews, we're going to review each team as we go along. So you can see the breakers here. We just touched on it before. Now, I've got here PJC with about 10 exclamation marks. Boz, as we said, the kudos goes to you because you said keep the faith. 109 GDS points for this great man. You touched on it before. What an amazing performance. See, Lopez Hill, the 62, but it just looks like absolute chicken feed compared to this man, PJC. So tell us about your boys, the Breakers, going into this week, and a quick review of the couple of games that they played this week, mate.
Yeah, so I mentioned it last week. They had a 2-game homestand, so they're playing both games at home. It's a bit easier to be settled. I said that they're going to win at least one. To be honest, they should have won both. They were in a position against Sem where they had them on the ropes, and then they just really didn't play well in the second half, to be honest. I think Southeast Melbourne came out really well, and we saw that, when the Breakers win games, PJC is going to be rolling. And it's not to say that he's going to score 109 every week, because that's astronomical. Like, even Bryce Cotton hasn't hit that this year in some of those massive games so far. But this is more from what we should expect from PJC. Even in that second game, he got like 56. And to be honest, if going into this week, or last week, I should say, you told me that PJC was going to score 56 as his top score, I would have been like, you know what, I'll take that. Because as we said last week, there's not many other point guard options. There is Kendrick Davis. There is an Andrew Adams and a Tyson Walker from United and Cairns, but their ceilings are nowhere near as high as the ceiling of PJC. And that is why I think you just need to lock this man in most weeks, to be honest. Even when they're playing singles, I mean, there are some matchups we do want to avoid. And look, to be honest, there's an argument this week. Do you lock him into your side? You do, based on form. But the fact that he goes to Melbourne for the second game and plays United, where he scored a 9 earlier in the year, that could go two ways. It's either going to give him a bit of a monkey on his back to try and get a better score this week, or he might roll into Melbourne again and have another stinker. So, it's an interesting one, but based on form, you must lock him into your side.
Oh, absolutely. It'd be very hard to leave him out after that game one performance. Vernsy, we can see here in the second game, Sam Menenga. Now, people have been asking about the centers lately in Boz's mailbag segment. Is there any validation to be seriously considering, in your opinion, playing someone like a Menenga in one of those two center positions on field?
Look, it's really hard in the sense that obviously we get to change our team each week, so we always get to pick the best players. Saying that, Menenga's ceiling's actually as high as most other centers. He can match, McGee. He can match Edwards. He can match even Harrison on their good weeks. The only thing there is, he's had 2 monstrous weeks and then 3 kind of subpar weeks. And then that's the only problem. Do you risk a yo-yo like a Menenga, or do you just lock in like a JLA, who's pretty consistently going to get a good score with the ceiling capability sort of thing? So unfortunately, I think unless it's a good matchup and you don't like the other ones, would I fade towards a Menenga angle? But he has been really solid this season. So when it comes to the Breakers, there's only 2 players that are honestly pretty relevant there. It's PJC and Menenga. But to be fair, Lopez also pops up every now and again too. So, yeah.
Like it, Verns. Now, Boz, is there anything else that you want to touch on in regards to the Breakers before we move on to the Hawks?
Not really. I think Verns slightly touched on it at the end there. Lopez is probably your third. If you're someone that doesn't have a lot of cards and you're looking at that small forward spot and you might not have a Prather or someone else, Lopez is probably like fourth, fifth, maybe sixth in line in that small forward position. And it looks like his minutes restriction has basically been lifted, meaning he's going to play more. He's actually such a good basketballer for an 18-year-old. Like, he's so good. He's going to be very good in the NBA. And it wouldn't surprise me if he was a lottery pick when he does get drafted. So, yeah, Karim Lopez is an option. But in saying that, there are better options at the small forward position most weeks.
Beautiful, mate. All right, well, we'll move on to the Hawks, who we can also see here on the screen now. McGee has been a big player in regards to GDS this season, the 41 points. Tyler Harvey, 40 points, but we'll touch on the game that he had in the second game here, and absolutely monstrous when it comes to GDS. We've got your Peatling with your 30 there. Nothing really relevant here. One thing of note is they have released McLaughlin as well, and I don't know much about it. Verns, do you know anything about McLaughlin news about why he was released, or any information, boys, in regards to that?
Look, it's rude to him because he would absolutely smoke me on a basketball court, but he just wasn't up to the standard. Unfortunately, when you try and replace someone like a Trey Cal, and we've seen it with Hawks so far, they only got their first win against who did they even beat? Brisbane. Yeah, a Brisbane team that's missing most of their main players. They're not good, and they need a third import that can lift, because right now it's really on Harvey and McGee's back. Peatling actually had a really good showing in this game. I really liked what he did. But, yeah, they need a third import that's a star.
All right, Boz. Tyler Harvey, 86 GDS points in this match. Did you catch this one and have any thoughts about Harvey's performance? Because he was a bit of a shout-out last week and the man on our thumbnail for the pod. So I think we really nailed this one.
Yeah, no doubt. We definitely nailed it. I mean, after the first game, I was a little bit skeptical because I did think that was the game to target, to be honest, the New Zealand game with their run of form. But yeah, as we spoke about, he has to do a lot. And you can see by his stat line, what did he have? 20 points, 10 assists, 7 rebounds. Like, he literally did it all. Brisbane are a shambles, so they are an easier matchup. And they're definitely a team that I'll be looking now to actually target with your GDS players. But you saw there that even with 4 turnovers, which is, it can be score killing for some players, he just did so much else that it did not even affect his score. And an 86, which is so good to see from Tyler Harvey, because I did pump him up as that second option to Cotton at shooting guard. And he's just a superstar, like such a good basketballer. Depending on who they bring in, it will become interesting. I think for now they haven't signed another point guard. Yes, Will Hickey's still coming back, but if Will Hickey gets back, he's not really that scoring type. So Tyler Harvey is still going to continue on this kind of trend, I would say. However, if they were to bring in another import guard type that, let's say, not a Trey Cal, but someone that can score, we'll see that there'll be a bit of sharing there in the scoring. And we did see that last year when it came to Harvey and Cal as fantasy options. But for now, he's a set and forget, especially in those double game weeks.
Great call, mate. Now, the other thing that I've noticed here with McGee is that he seems to have a really high floor. We've seen the ceiling, but he seems like a very safe pick at that center. Verns, you talked about someone like Menenga before. We see those games where he doesn't do too well, then he tends to jump right up. Yeah, I think McGee for me has a bit of consistency about him, which I like as well as a pick. So anything else you want to touch on Hawks related, boys, before we move on to the next team?
Yeah, not really anything Hawks related. Brisbane only played the one this week, didn't they? So this is their only game to touch on them if we want.
Let's do it, Verns.
I think Harrison is probably a big absence from this list you're looking at. You have to keep scrolling down to see Harrison on this list. It's kind of wild. I mean, the man was incredible in the first couple of weeks, and then the last 2 games he's been really poor. Now that has been foul trouble. One of them he got fouled off and only played 24 minutes, and even though he played 24 minutes, obviously you're going to play very differently for the time you're on the court if you're on 3-4 fouls for most of that time. So this was a similar thing. I think I felt like it was going to happen because of the comment that was made, by, I forget Illawarra's coach's name, but he made a comment that they felt
Tatum.
Tatum, he made the comment about McGee feeling like he was getting hard done, and you just knew this game they were going to look after him, and you knew Harrison was going to get wrecked. And there was a few foul calls that, like, I don't think Harrison did anything, and he just kept getting pinged for him because it was McGee and Tatum had thrown a fuss about it. So that was terrible for him, but that is a great example of someone with a low floor. Harrison's had 2 games now where they're sub-20s. Menenga's had games where he's around the 20s, and then you have someone like McGee, whose worst game was against New Zealand in the first game of this round, and he dropped to 41 still. Like, if that's your floor, that makes you feel so confident going in each week, knowing that worst case scenario, you're getting still a premium score. Best case scenario, you get an 80, you get a 90, you're getting a huge score. So, yeah, good to see. Prather's returned, so that's good for the team. Lamar Patterson's been really good for Brisbane. Interesting one. I don't know how I feel about that as of yet. Probably Prather the only one on this team that you consider, because, yeah, Adams has also sucked this year, which is weird.
Yeah, up and down, isn't he? Now, Boz, in regards to the movement section here, Freeman Liberty gone, parted ways, heading home now to focus on recovery from a hamstring. Now, I've got here other suggestions, maybe some mental health or some homesickness. Who do you think this can affect in the lineup? Because we talked about some solid minutes for particular players. Do you think that really changes up things now? And is there anyone else that may put their hand up for some extra GDS points, given he's now going to be absent from the team?
It looks like Tui Smith-Milner and Lamar Patterson are getting a lot more of the minutes. So I think they're sliding Casey Prather down to like a small forward, because he traditionally plays like a smaller power forward for them. And then Patterson or Tui Smith-Milner, they come in and play that traditional power forward 4 spot. I wouldn't trust either of them. Lamar Patterson played unreal. He even threw down a pretty big jam for an old man, which was cool to see. But for me, what I got out of this is with Freeman Liberty gone, who was someone who was scoring in the 40 pluses in the GDS format, Casey Prather is just gold now. Like he had a terrible first quarter. I was watching that game. They were losing like 20-2. He was doing nothing. He had a couple turnovers, and I had him in my team, and I was thinking, wow, he's just... I think the whole of Brisbane are no good, but then by the end of the game, you can see what he does, and he ended up pulling out like a mid-50 score. So Casey Prather is a really good option, I think, now that Brisbane are one decent import down.
Yeah, like that, mate. You can see there just across the board, a few assists, a few steals thrown in there as well, a couple of offensive rebounds. These are all really nice extra bonus points for him. So, yeah, good call there with Prather. And also some of the blokes that may take a little bit of advantage here with Freeman Liberty now gone. All right, that's a bullet's done. 36ers we'll crack on to next. Flinny Cameron in this particular game top scored, and you wouldn't believe it. Bryce Cotton, we can see down there, 25 points. The game prior or the game after, I forget what the order was, but 74 GDS points for Cotton in that game. But this game, only 25 points. Boz, did you catch this game, and have you got any reasoning as to why this man only scored the 25? Because we're used to him going absolutely nuts for our sides.
Yeah, bull qual. That's the 2 words you need to know about.
Like the old traditional tagger.
That's it. In the last couple of seasons, he's been pretty poor as an overall basketballer, bull qual. But we saw back in Cairns, he was just that lockdown defender that Adam Ford would go to when he needed to lock down a star player. And it was really nice to see bull qual kind of showing a shadow, what his former self used to be like. And it was also nice to see that Cotton's human and he can actually have bad games, because it's just insane some of the tears he goes on. Look, bull qual probably isn't an option to put in your own team. But just know that potentially now that he's locked down Cotton, if there's a bit of a team that has a one-man wrecking ball, so like, maybe a Bryce Hamilton at Tassie comes to mind. And I think they do actually play Sydney tomorrow night, funnily enough. Potentially we might see more of bull qual being thrown out and just getting on Bryce Hamilton and forcing Tassie to try and score alternative ways. So not going to say that that's going to scare you off picking anyone that Sydney come up against, but it's just something to note and something to kind of look at over the next few rounds, because he did a tremendous job on Bryce Cotton. But again, luckily with the 2-game week, Bryce is always going to go off once in a week. So
that's right.
Yeah. And Bryce does not like having bad games, so prepare for another couple of big ones this week, I would think.
Yeah, it reminds me a bit like the Brisbane Lions. We'd get smacked for a game, and then the next week we would come home strong, and it was a pattern all year. Vernsey, we can see the great man Cotton here. Boz just told us that you cannot keep the great man down. 74 points in this particular game. We've also got Humphries, a big man, with 59. But again, there is a lot of competition in that centre spot. We've got Cheatham there, again, being a pretty popular selection. Only the 25 in this game. I think you got a 40-odd in the other game. So some of these players are a little bit up and down. Apart from Cotton, who's catching your eye in regards to the 36ers for our GDS squads?
Yeah, just before I do go into that, I just want to speak about Quoll quickly. Obviously, you mentioned he definitely quolled Bryce, and something I was actively aware of myself. I know in other formats I did not captain Bryce because I was scared of that. I mean, I wasn't smart enough to not bring him in and captain PJC, but still. But yeah, also PJC earlier in the year held to a 37 from Quoll. I say Quoll, but it was also Sydney's game plan. They were doing a hard show on the pick and roll and forcing him to make a pass rather than letting him have any opportunity to shoot. And then they would definitely rotate to that passing lane and force a cross-court pass, and that's where the turnovers were happening. And yeah, Sydney had a great game plan for that. I think the week before, I forgot who played against Adelaide, they tried to do the same thing, but they just did it like a much worse version of it. But yeah, going into this week, Humphries been really, really good. Honestly, I've loved what I've seen from Humphries, and he's someone that he is generally a really good baller. Sometimes he has these brain fade moments that you just can't believe, but he generally balls really well. And the way he's been playing with Bryce has been incredible. His pick and roll with Bryce has been so good. I saw a quote from him that he's been playing against Bryce for years. He knows how to defend against it, so he knows exactly where Bryce wants you to be, and just ends up getting these beautiful feeds from Bryce. It's a positive for him. It's a positive for Bryce. Bryce gets, as we see here, 9 assists. He gets all these assists, and Humphrey gets all these buckets, and it's just beautiful for the team. Unfortunately, Cheatham doesn't seem to get as much of that. As we can see, his scoring this year in general, his average points are just really low. And I'm kind of wanting to fade away from him a bit of a small forward. I think he's definitely that guy with that ceiling because we know how many rebounds he can get and how athletic and dynamic he is, but just in the way the team is with Bryce, I just don't think he gets enough usage. So I think he does have that flaw. The other thing that does scare me with obviously Humphries is we saw, I think, Richter Vicious, whatever his name is, the other big man that's now there, that's playing along with Humphries. He's really good for what I've seen. I thought that might negatively affect Humphries, but I think that Adelaide have kind of backed Humphries in as like, this is our marquee player sort of thing, like, outside of Bryce himself. This is our guy. He's been with our club for ages. He's been like a face for Adelaide, like a staple for them, and they're sort of backing him in and giving him the minutes. So I do love seeing that. But once again, he's just a bit of a yo-yo on the center pick where we just have more solid picks than that, unfortunately.
Yeah, you can see here, for example, as you just said, 17 GDS, and then we saw close to a 60 in the game before. So, nailed that one, Vernsey.
I think the biggest thing with Humphries is he just doesn't rebound enough. It's crazy to see him not get many rebounds. Like this game right here, 1 rebound from Humphries. How does that happen as a center? It blows my mind.
That is nuts. I did not even look at that stat, but 0 offensive rebounds, a single defensive rebound. Well, let's just not sugarcoat it. That's just not good enough, is it really, from the big man? Like, come on, mate. That's your job. Get up on there in the boards. Like,
look, I think what he does do is he does a lot of the boxing out of the other center and sort of negates them from the rebounding contest, which allows Cheatham to get a high number of rebounds, obviously. It's more that, he's playing more of the team game than the actual stats game. But he is kind of notorious for very low rebounds. And in this game mode, GDS rebounds, they are gold. So you can see this game, Cheatham once again doesn't score the ball at all, but gets a bunch of rebounds, and all of a sudden he's up on 46 points. Wild.
Yeah, only the 8 points. Yeah, low scoring, as you were saying. Boz, anything that's really catching your eye or any discussion points you think for Adelaide?
Not really. I think, Verns summed it up really well. Cotton's a lock. If you want to get spicy, put a Cheatham or a Humphries into your team, maybe even a Flynn Cameron. He's shown he can at least play 1 good game on a double, and shout out to him. He's played so good this season. But that's probably all you need to know.
Beautiful. Well, we've got the Sydney Kings here, so we might as well touch on them. Vernsy, your boy Xavier Cooks. Yeah, it hurt this week, and this wasn't actually his highest scoring game, but in this particular game, the 57 points, 12 points scored, and then we look across 4 offensive rebounds. Again, you said it before, absolute gold as well as the 4 defensive rebounds, the 5 assists, a steal thrown in there, a couple of blocks, a couple of turnovers and personals, but all in all, a really nice comeback round from him all up. Noy there, 52 points. He's more of that pod type selection in your power forward spot. But if you don't own some particular cards there, then he's someone that I know some teams are playing at the moment. You've got Daly there for the 39 points. Boz, we might go to you on this one. What's catching your eye with the Sydney Kings? And maybe start with Xavier Cooks. Is this the comeback? Is this what we needed to see? Is this a confidence builder for Xavier now? Is he back in business?
It definitely should be a confidence builder for him. I mean, he's put out some subpar games to start the season, and I think both games on this double game week they played were really good. I really liked his game against United, even though they didn't get the win. I thought he played quite well. The only thing that killed him there, even though he did score so much, it was actually, he went, 1 from 10 from the free throw line. So he could have actually scored an extra 9 points if he scored all his free throws. Now, traditionally, he's probably not a 85% free throw shooter, but he's more of a 50% rather than a 10% free throw shooter. So, in a sense, his confidence is back in his passing and his rebounding, and I think his ability to get more touches. And I think we saw that. I remember watching the United Sydney game straight after the New Zealand game, and the first 3 possessions down the court, they fed him the ball. So it was pretty evident that they know they haven't been giving him the ball enough. And you can see what happens when they do give him the ball. He's either going to score or create for his teammates. So this is more of what to expect from a Cooks, more of that 40 floor to hopefully a 70 ceiling. And hopefully he can hit more of his free throws. So we get some more extra easy bonus points. But yeah, I'm wrapped for Xavier Cooks because I really enjoy watching him and putting him in my GDS side.
Beautiful, mate. Now, Verns, I'm not going to get you to discuss Xavier Cooks, mate. We'll skip him for you. KD, Kendrick Davis. So the 42 points in this game, 21 points scored, few rebounds, few assists, not too many, 0 in regards to the turnovers and the personal fouls. Not the biggest type game that we've seen from him, but is he still someone that you're thinking we just lock in week upon week? Is he still at that level now? Or then other names that are creeping ahead of him, maybe if they're on the double, he's on a single, etc., or are confidence levels still pretty high with him?
Look, it just comes down to the other guys, in this point guard position. Obviously, PJC's been elite, but then outside of that, I mean, Hawks obviously don't have a point guard. Jalen Adams has been really bad. We've also had Jones be really bad. Like, Tiger Campbell hasn't been that good. Like, I don't even think it's that KD is just a really good pick. I just think that the other point guard picks aren't that enticing, honestly, because we can sort of see in this game, like, this isn't good for KD in the sense that he gets most of his points through scoring the ball. And this game mode highly rewards, as we've seen from Cheatham and even Flynn Cameron in his earlier game. Like, it doesn't matter about scoring the ball as much; it's all the other stuff you do, and he's just not really doing those other things. So it keeps his floor really low. The reason he's only getting 0 turnovers is the ball's not in his hand much. It's in Delhi's hand, it's in Cook's hand, and he's getting the ball when he's looking to score, and that's really it. You can see in this game here, 22 points, but then 21 GDS. Yeah. It's not a friendly fantasy game for Davis. I think Kings in general hasn't been fantasy friendly because the ball's just not in his hand as much at the Kings. But as I said, the other teams around him, I think you could definitely fade him on single game weeks into bad matchups, or even just single game weeks in general where the other point guards have good matchups. But yeah, right now it's a lack of other good point guards rather than him being a standout.
Nice. Boz, any thoughts on KD? How are your confidence levels with him as a pick at the moment?
Yeah, I totally agree with what Vern said. And funnily enough, watching that Melbourne-Sydney game, I was thinking, I'm like, that Walker guy, he's completely balling out and he's playing so much better than KD. And then you look at the scores and they're actually even. So yes, KD doesn't really score in many avenues, but I just think he just finds a way. I know he had that 21 against Adelaide, but does that come down to going back to Adelaide? Does that come down to he fouled a lot in this game? He turned the ball over a fair bit. Is that uncharacteristic? They were up by a lot, so I know he didn't play much of the last quarter after a while. Not sure, but again, wasn't his best game. But I just feel like Verns is right. The other options, they're not that great. If Cotton, for example, was a point guard, well, then it's a whole different story because every week you're locking in Cotton and PJC most likely, and then you're thinking about, do I risk it with Adams? Do I risk it with KD? But at the moment, there literally is no one else putting their hand up. And that was the whole reason of going PJC last week, because who else are you going to go? Yes, they're playing bad, but who is behind them that's better? Not many players. So, yeah, that's my opinion. You still got to put him in your side, even though we're not really liking what we're seeing.
Agree. So it's that real, in a way, lack of competition for that particular spot, isn't it? There's just not too many blokes that are putting their hand up, screaming, pick me. So I'm someone that's still pretty confident playing him because you guys both touch on it. There's just not too many other guys that I'd have ahead of him at this stage. Boys, any other blokes from the Kings you want to touch on? How about Daly? Does he have a shout to get played on a double game week or just a bit behind the pack at the moment?
Look, Daly's also obviously a point guard there as well, and he does do the rebounding and assist side of things. As you see, though, he doesn't score the ball. 6 points there. Look, him and KD, I actually think it's just a bit of a yin-yang. Like Daly's going to do everything else but score the ball, and KD's going to score the ball. And, that's just what happens in this match, and it's going to be a real one game it's Daly, one game it's KD. Noy was a surprising one in this game. I say surprising. Noy's always been a gun off the bench, but to bring out 52 is a really high number in reality. Like 29 points, that's actually pretty insane. So that's
Top
just
scorer,
a random pick there.
+7 in regards to the scoring as well. 3-point shots made. That's another bonus, isn't it? So you're getting those 4 extra points. And the thing is, when we're talking about 4 extra points, we saw, we started this week, equal 5th for the first position. Yeah. So 4 points, and someone like a Noy that is more of a pod type selection for some teams, that's the sort of stuff that can actually get you over the line there.
100%. Give me Noy over Doolittle any week. No, not really.
Jeez, mate. I feel for you. You've just got this dark cloud, haven't you, in regards to selections this year. It's just not your fault, mate. It's just that 1 week that you're getting off with your timing.
Mate, if I'm picking them, just don't.
Go the opposite this way. Do it the week after. Boz, anything else for the Sydney Kings, my friend?
No, nothing more for the Sydney Kings.
All right. Well, we have Melbourne United here, and we do have the big man up the top, Jesse Edwards, in this particular game against the Kings. 56 GDS points, 22 points, 5 offensive rebounds. Love myself a good offensive rebound. 7 on the defensive board as well. No assists or steals, nothing across there. Unfortunately, we see 5 personal fouls. So fouled out. That's not what we want to see, but I suppose those 3 blocks also add to that. Boys, how's our confidence levels in the Edwards selection week upon week? We're saying he's close to a lock, or again, you've got maybe a big man from Perth and someone like McGee still ahead of him. How are you feeling about chucking him in your squad?
Oh, look, he's definitely a consideration every week. He's definitely one of the top centers in this league. I don't own him personally, don't have any variants of him, and there's a few weeks I look at him and wish I did. But as you see with the way he spreads the stat sheet here, it's like he's getting rebounds, he's getting points, he's getting blocks, he's getting all the traditional big man things and nothing outside of that. But the point he could put out 56 with 5 fouls as well, like that's very impressive.
Big, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was I thought it was a bigger game against Cairns here, but I guess they stomped him so hard that they could run the bench a bit more.
Low across the board, isn't it? And I think that's the reason. You look at this, it was clearly the biggest margin out of all the games here. What was it? 35 points, so 95 to 60. This one here, just low scores across the board. And I think, as you said, Verns, when we see these blowouts and you get other blokes that tend to get some extra minutes, Milton Doyle doesn't really seem like a GDS selection, does he this year? Maybe Supercoach type selection in the past. Boz, any other particular players catching your eye or anything that you want to add to the Edwards discussion?
I really like Edwards. Yeah, he's probably my favourite United pick just because they don't really have another centre. They do have Finn Delaney and Krislovic, who are a bit smaller, who they play at times. But Edwards, is traditionally going to play that tall number 5 centre position for a long period of time. I think in the past, United have always had 2. Like they had a Marcus Lee and a Huck Porty who would always share minutes. But there's no one really for Edwards to share minutes with. And the more minutes you play, the more you're going to score in theory. So I like Edwards. But down in that guard spot for United with Walker, with Krebs, with Goulding coming back now, with Milton Doyle, with Illy when he gets back from injury, there's just too many mouths to feed in that area. I don't like any of them, to be honest. Walker's probably my favourite from what I've seen on the eye test. Doyle he's so up and down. Like he plays so well, and then like he just doesn't need to do anything the next game because they're just so good, United. I think that's half their issue as well. They're beating teams so easily that they don't really need to roll too many of their main guys out for too long, and that's why we're seeing some lower scores from some of these guys. But yeah, Edwards is the one I would target for United for sure.
Look, saying that with Doyle, like obviously he had the 55 in the earlier game as well, so as you mentioned, a bit of a yo-yo there. But I think this is the opposite of the point guard. There's a lot of good shooting guards to choose from, so you don't need to look at a yo-yo. I think shooting guards and centers probably the roles that have like a couple of really, really good picks, so you don't need to go for these guys that are a bit more yo-yo-y and risk it unnecessarily.
Yeah, good call, Verns. And you look at Doyle in this particular match, you see 5 and 4 here. Usually we want to see numbers, but not in turnovers and personal fouls. So that was an absolute killer for his score. And it's really hard to come back from stuff like that unless you're absolutely smashing up the scoreboard. So good chat there, boys, about United. We'll go to the Phoenix. So we've got the Phoenix, Cairns, and then we'll finish off with Perth. But we'll start here. Nathan Sobey, 56, 1 point above John O'Brown this week with a 55. You see Foxwell with a 54. So between the three, only really a 2-point range there. Then you go down to the big man Hunter with 31. But boys, we've talked about some of the depth in certain positions with the shooting guard position. Nathan Sobey, are we playing him in any formats? Is he playing well enough for us to lock him in a spot?
Well, I know Boz hates him, so I don't know if you want to take it away, Boz.
Look, he has proved me wrong this season so far. They've played 3 games. I think he's averaging around what he scored on the weekend, and it's because they need him to. They still don't have an import. Well, they do actually now. They signed Wes Owundu, who used to play for the Orlando Magic, but he's more of a small forward, I'm led to believe. So, look, Foxwell and Sobey are going to be the 2 main ball-handling guards for that team, and Sobey's traditionally a really good scorer and someone who can win you games, and it looks like Sobey's going to be the one they go to. And watching that game against New Zealand, that's how the story went. Foxwell and Sobey ran the offense. John Brown picked up the scraps and got those steals and blocks and some assists, but yeah, Sobey was the go-to guy. So look, if you want to go for a pod move and pick a Sobey, I would never pick Sobey over Cotton, but maybe Sobey over like a Harvey who's on a single game this week if you just don't really trust him. Sure, might pay off for you. I won't be doing it though.
I like it, mate. You're trying to take the emotion out of it. Very, very good, man. Vernsy, any thoughts from you, mate?
I mean, this one actually came back to bite me, but I ran a gold Sobey in Contender this week, which you think that's pretty nice, but Tyler Harvey still outscored that as a bronze, so not really.
Oh, that hurts, doesn't it? When the bronze gets over that gold. Well, how about John O'Brown? What are your thoughts on John Brown?
Oh, I love John Brown. He seems like such a good fantasy pick because he actually does do everything. He's going to get steals. He's going to get blocks. He's such a big defensive player, but he still gets assists. He still gets rebounds, and he's not known for his scoring, but his midi isn't too bad. There's been a few times that he's had a very quiet half from the mid-range, but I feel like it's not too bad at all. I actually don't mind his mid-range J, so I really love him as a pick. I love that he's available for a double game this week. He's slipping straight into my team, I'll tell you that much. I'm not running too little again.
Beautiful. Look, I just love his swagger. I love his hair. I just love his style and his look. He's just a cool sort of a dude. So I'm a massive Brown fan. And obviously being John Brown, the great Jonathan Brown, different type characters in regards to their fashion sense. I'll tell you that much, and hairstyles. But yeah, love myself a good John Brown. Boz, big fan of Brownie yourself?
Yeah, well, I hadn't really ever watched him. I haven't caught a SEM game this season, but I did watch the New Zealand game. And yeah, super impressed. Going into the season, when you hear that they signed him, 33 years old, EuroLeague veteran, I was just like, you know what? He might only play like 15 to 20 minutes a game. But this man, and they mic'd him up on the weekend, and he was just like so into it. He was just yelling at teammates. Like Foxwell got tunneled and he hit the ground. He's like, if you ain't bleeding, you all right, get up. Like all these things. Like he's just
nice.
Yeah. And it looked like Foxwell could have like sprained his shoulder or something, but he's just like, nah, you ain't bleeding, get up, you're fine. Like
Come on,
he's a good leader, and I think he's someone that the Semita's going to roll out there to do a job at the power forward spot. And what we can see is he gets the assists as well, and they're worth 4 points a penny. So yeah, really, really good stat set for GDS. And I think this week I'll also be putting him in my power forward lineup with the double game week.
Rate it highly, and that is awesome. I love that. Like, come on, young fella, get up. Come on, up you get, son. This isn't soccer. I absolutely love that. That is brilliant. Anything else we need to touch on in regards to Sem boys before we head on to the Taipans?
No, I think we got the big three, and that's it.
All right, beautiful. Now the poor old Taipans are struggling at the moment. So what they have was it was 2 games this week, wasn't it? So Perth, actually, this was a close one. The close one was against Perth. Perth 80 to the Taipans 77, but then a massive blowout in this game here against United. And we see Alex Higgins-Tischer here with the high score of 31. So that goes to show that life isn't too good here. Jack McVeigh with 30. So we've seen him with some really big scores and then come back to the pack a little bit there. Andrew Andrews with the 24 points. So not disaster type mode, but certainly not what we're after in GDS.
Yeah, Boz, you see 7 turnovers, and that's wild. I mean, the man gets high assists, and we love that, but 7 turnovers.
Sorry, Vernsy, start us off here, mate, because you're not happy with the turnover column here.
Oh, it's wild to see 7 from Andrew Andrews. That's so high. Like, look, he gets good assist numbers, and when they won their 2 games, he was really, really good. In one of them that they won, and the other one was his first game there, and he looked not great. But that's just insane to have that many turnovers. You cannot have that many turnovers just for your team in general, let alone for the fantasy side of things. That's absolutely nuts. What's that? 28 points down the drain right there. That's wild.
It is.
That's more points than what he actually scored.
It's nuts, isn't it? But I must say that Boz did warn us very, very early on. Never trust a man with this sort of the same first and last name. So it proof in the pudding right here, lads. Right here. Boz, how about McVeigh? Now, is he someone that we can be relying upon, or is it matchup dependent? Do we more focus on the doubles here? I must admit, personally, I was expecting him to come in and absolutely dominate this competition with GDS points, just absolutely raining and hailing down, but hasn't been the case necessarily here. What are your thoughts on McVeigh as an overall selection, mate?
Yeah, it's a tough one because what we're seeing is he's putting up decent stat lines. He's actually getting stats across the board. Traditionally, he was just a scoring player. But what I do think now is because he's getting scores across the line, because he's being dependent on more, that's increasing the turnovers, and it's also increasing his involvement on the defensive end, and we're seeing some more fouls. So he's still scoring, 30 to 40 points, which is okay, but I think it's being capped a little bit just based on the amount of times he has the ball. And as I said last week, he's not the best playmaker. Like, he's certainly improved in that area. He's just not the best playmaker. So yeah, with Jack, it's really tough. It's one of those ones where it's going to come down to the other options. Like, do you trust him over a Doolittle? At the moment, you still do, because he's putting out 30, which is better than 10, right? So, yeah, with McVeigh, it's tread with caution, but at the same time, if Cooks is having a rough patch of form, if Doolittle still isn't showing anything, it's a question again. Who do you trust? You're going to put a Josh Bannon in, who I think's had one good game out of about 6 or 7 that that Tassie have already played. Like, I just still think that McVeigh is one of the top 3 options that you do put in at that power forward position, unfortunately, because he's been playing pretty average.
Yeah, it's a good point. And again, a lot of this talk comes down to competition for spots, doesn't it? So it is really important that you touch on that, mate. Anything else in regards to the Taipans, or do we really just sort of focus on the McVeighs of the world and just wait to see some form or some role changes from anyone else, boys? Anything else catch your eye?
I've got one more from Cairns. Higgins Titcher. So he top scored in both their games. And I know one of them was only 30, but he scored a 50. And it seems like he's been getting better and better every week. Last year, when they had so many injuries, Cairns, he came in as this guy that surprised everyone, really. No one really knew who he was. Came in, played really well. So he was kind of like coming in as a second-year player. People were thinking he's going to make the step straight away. First 3 or 4 games were no good, but he's really coming into his own now. And if you look at his stat set, loves a rebound because he can get up. He's got a good leap on him, similar to Zylan Cheatham. He gets up really high, gets those rebounds, and he's very good defensively. He's very lengthy, so he gets a lot of steals. Not going to score a lot, but if we can rebound and a lot of them be offensive and also get some steals, that can really put out a really big GDS score. Does he do it consistently enough? No. Is he starting at the moment? No. But we know Adam Ford, when they lose big, he likes to mix things up. So potentially we see some more Higgins Titcher minutes. If he was a power forward and not a small forward, I'd honestly be super tempted to play him. But because he's a small forward, I'm always going to lock in Prather and Windler every week. So, yeah, that's another food for thought there as well.
Yeah, that's a ripping shout. And that's a great segue into our last team, which is Perth and Dylan Windler. I've got to stop mentioning it each week, Boz, because your head's just going to get too big for the screen there. But your boy, your boy, PJC is your boy, but I'm going to refer to Windler as your boy as well. And I've been riding on the coattails here because I've selected Windler in my squad each and every week for GDS this year. And rarely let me down. I know he let Verns down on one particular week, just that dark cloud that's been following poor old Vernsy around at times. But tell us about this man, Dylan Windler, because I've been super impressed with what he's been producing this season. And something that you always touch on, mate, is for his size, his ability to rebound. And we didn't see any offensive rebounds, but we did still see the 11 defensive rebounds from this bloke. And adds that 26 points, a couple of steals, a few assists, and even a block, if you don't mind, without any type of big numbers in your fouls or your turnovers column. He's just been a dream selection for most weeks this year, hasn't he?
Yeah, definitely. I think only the one poor game, to be honest, that he's played so far this season. And yeah, just the amount of confidence you can see in his game now, it's pretty evident. I think he went through a bit of injuries in the NBA, came in last year to Perth. Bryce Cotton was still there, so we know how many shots he needs to take a game. Windler was kind of that second, third option. Even Doolittle was doing more last season. I think this season something's changed. They've gone back to playing a bit more of a pass-first point guard. Although Mason Jones can score, he just hasn't shown it yet. So I am worried that when he gets his game rolling, that it does affect Windler's production because they have so many great players on Perth's team. But for now, you've got to ride momentum. Like Perth are going to JLA and Dylan Windler to win them games, and they are winning games. So I think that continues. And I can only hope that those rebounds, those points, to be honest, he should be shooting more than 1-3 a game. He should be getting 2 or 3. He's a great outside shooter. So that, again, gives you some more points. And as long as he can keep his turnovers and personal fouls under wraps, he's going to put out some big scores with the way he can score across all the avenues, particularly on the defensive end with those steals and blocks as well. So, yeah, I'm really happy that the picks kind of really worked out at the moment because I'm hoping that everyone that's been listening has been putting him into their side and that's, showing in the results.
Absolutely. I couldn't have gone close to first and starter without him this week. And another thing that you touched on there was the turnovers and the personal fouls. And if you look at the two highest scorers here, JLA along with Windler, for the Wildcats, we can see 1 and 1 and then 0 and 2. So again, that goes a long way to getting a decent score. We saw Milton Doyle, I think, with like 5 and 4 in those columns. So it just makes a massive difference there if you're a little bit cleaner with the ball. Vernsy, JLA, a lock most weeks in the center position. Is it just JLA, McGee, throw away the keys?
Yeah, look, basically that's it. I don't even think we need to say much more than that. Like, you should pick JLA every single week. Offense goes through him. Sometimes his rebounding can be a little bit low, which I never really understand. But he's always going to score that ball, and he's always going to. I think once again, feel like his floor is too good with a high ceiling. So lock it in.
Beautiful. Boz, I'll go back to you. The last really relevant player I can see here is Christian Doolittle. I didn't want Verns to talk about this because he's done him dirty this week. I think he might have done you dirty in a couple of formats as well, but I'm going to try to soften Verns' blow here. Doolittle, do you know what on earth happened to you for those of us that didn't tune into this one?
Look, he just wasn't needed. Like, they just were playing so well through Windler and JLA. And this is what happens with Doolittle. He just goes missing sometimes. He does all the off-ball things really well, so he's a great team defender. Last year, they actually ran the ball through him a lot. Like, he was actually getting a couple of assists a game last year, some big rebound numbers. But I think Windler and JLA being there now, that's taking over that production there. I'm really down on Doolittle, to be honest, as a fantasy producer. He's a good team player and he's their captain, so there's a reason why they love him there at Perth. But yeah, until I see it, I'm not going to play him. I can't. It was really frustrating to watch him just like lackadays, dribble the ball up the court, bounce it off his shoe, turn it over, like get an offensive rebound, but then get it stripped away straight away. Like he just hasn't got that urgency that he had last season. So yeah, I'm a bit hesitant to be picking Doolittle moving forward.
Yeah, really low numbers here across the board. But again, if you look there at the turnovers and the personal fouls, not good at all. Vernsy, anything else Perth related that you want to touch on, mate?
I think John Ridley is really good, actually. I like when he's on the floor. Not going to be relevant to fantasy at all, but yeah, no, he produces well. I think he gets good hustle, good assist, and I think that helps. Having him as a point guard at times does help, even if he's not directly getting the assist. He moves, he cuts, he creates space. He does the things you need from a point guard, especially with a team that have Windler and JLA and Jones and all that can do all the scoring things. You don't need him to do anything crazy. Just be the facilitator. So I really like him as a player in general. Yes, not really fantasy relevant, but yeah.
One to watch out for. I like it, mate. Boz, anything to end with the Wildcats, or do you think we've covered everything relevant that we need to, brother?
No, definitely covered everything. I think everyone's waiting for that Mason Jones game, but we haven't seen it yet. So don't trust it until you see it.
All righty. Now, we will quickly discuss the matchups coming up this week. So to start us off, look at that, 22 hours, 51 minutes and 16 seconds coming up, boys. So I better get this one public as soon as possible. We've got the Jackies versus the Kings, followed by the Wildcats and the Bullets, 36ers and the Phoenix, the Breakers and the Jackies, Bullets and United, the Taipans and the 36ers, Phoenix and the Hawks, United and the Breakers, ending with the Kings and the Wildcats. Now, Boz, we've talked about in previous weeks, really targeting that Breakers matchup. Are you still feeling that way, or have you got a little bit more confidence after what they produced? And when I say they, PJC, produced last round. How are you feeling about that particular matchup? Have you shifted your thinking at all?
Not really. I think they're still a good team to target. Depends on the team, though. So it would have to be a team that only has a couple of options that they have to run it through. So, for example, last week with Illawarra, they only played the ball through Harvey and McGee. Things didn't work out quite well because New Zealand actually blew them out the building and they didn't play towards the end of the last quarter. However, if that game was a lot closer, I think we would have seen McGee and Harvey's scores be a little bit higher in that 50 range as opposed to 40s. Like, I look at their schedule now, like United against the Breakers, I wouldn't put a United player in just because they're versing the Breakers, to be honest, because I could see them pumping them and then resting their players. But if, for example, Breakers, are versing a team like the Jack Jumpers, someone like Bryce Hamilton, who does a lot of the work, he springs to mind straight away for me. So, look, Breakers are one to target, but I think there's actually a better team to target. And I would say Brisbane at the moment with their current form line, and even Cairns. They're the two Queensland state teams. They're the two teams I'm looking at to target this week. So someone like an Edwards, I know the matchup against Harrison is nice, but I just think that Brisbane are so bad defensively that United will get Edwards his buckets and he'll get his rebounds because they'll miss plenty of shots. And Cairns like Adelaide are versing Cairns. So, yeah, Bryce Cotton is, you're licking your lips on that one, I think.
We've also got the Wildcats here versus the Bullets. So the two blokes that we just touched on before with your JLA, your Windler, maybe we could look at some of those blokes as well to add to the side. Vernsy, are there any particular matchups that you like or that you may be targeting this week, brother?
Yeah, I mean, look, Buzz obviously outlined that I think Brisbane and Cairns, you just always match up well into them, whoever you are. And then I think New Zealand and Illawarra, obviously two other teams as well with only one win and haven't been that hot shot this year. I think United this week, having Brisbane and New Zealand, you think they definitely get those wins. We did talk about United not really having the best players, though, for fantasy because they spread the score so much. I think you lock Edwards in very obviously, like, he's been very good, and even on their easy beat win against Cairns by 35 points, he still put out 40. So I think you lock him into two easy matchups where I think he's going to absolutely crush it. If you want to get spicy with another player like a Doyle, feel free to, sort of thing. That's an obvious one. Obviously, Cairns, Adelaide, another very obvious one. You just lock Bryce in and don't even think about it.
Yeah.
I think they're probably the best matchups of the week. When it comes to team specific, I'd say they're the best matchups to go for.
Like it, Vernsy. Boz, anything else you want to touch on with fixtures for this week, brother?
There is one thing, but there's a question about it in the mailbag segment, so I'll hold off until that comes up.
Well, mate, it is absolutely that time. Been very good with the segues tonight. It is Boz's mailbag now, I believe. We've got 7 or 8 questions, some double ups from some of our good friends of the show as well. So thank you very much to anyone that has sent in a question. I know Boz does a lot of this on Discord. I'll remember in the coming weeks to also put a post out on X as well. I did put one post out, didn't get much love, but I will put another one out ready for next week. So you can also add your questions there as well. But a big shout out to all the community, particularly in the Discord, for all of your wonderful questions. And the first one is from our brother Janath. It is what to do about Jalen Adams. Start or sit? Boz, we'll start with you. Start or sit for Adams?
He can sit down because...
Take a seat, Jalen.
Yeah, he turns the ball over too much. He doesn't look too inspired. He has been known to kind of shut the haters up and come out and have a massive game. But again, I won't trust it till I see it. I'd be sitting Jalen Adams for the foreseeable future.
Like it, Vernsy? Stand or sit?
Yeah, you're sitting that. They've got Melbourne in one of their games. I think you almost cross that game off as a bad game. And then you're running a 50-50 against Perth where he has been out of form. Not doing that, mate.
All right. Sit on the pine, mister. Here we go. Next one from our brother. 1 game McGee versus 2 game centers. Now, we touched on his consistency before. We touched on his really high floor. Vernsy, what are you thinking about this one here? Are you still trusting McGee on 1 game? Or are you taking a punt on someone else with 2 games? Now, we've obviously got 2 positions on field. Let's just say that you've locked someone else in. Are there 2 players ahead of McGee? I suppose is the best way to ask it.
Yeah, I will say there is. I'm going to go JLA and Edwards. I'd be locking both of those guys in this week. Personally, I don't own an Edwards, so that means that it's a bit hard for someone like me. But, I think JLA and Edwards are going to be your go-to centers if you've got them.
All right, beautiful. Boz, do you agree with Verns there?
I do agree in the sense that if you want to play it safe, absolutely. But this is the question I wanted to touch on in terms of the schedule. Now, McGee's coming up against Southeast Melbourne, who are a great defensive team. However, they've been giving up some decent scores to centres. So I think we saw Menenga went massive on the weekend against Southeast Melbourne. In round 1, they pumped Cairns by, I think, nearly 40 points. But Marcus Lee also put out a high 30 score. Now, I know that doesn't seem too big, but that was in really limited minutes. Like, I don't think Marcus Lee played more than 15 to 20 minutes that game because they lost by so much. So I'm starting to see a smallish pattern. And to be honest, Menenga's great, but he's not a gun. and I wouldn't say Marcus Lee's that good either. So now a really good centre comes to town, and I'd just be very interested to see how McGee does go, because this could be a theme now that moves on rolling forward. I think Sem are really good at stopping maybe the guards and the forwards, but I think they do leak to the bigs. I don't think Geordie Hunter is too good of a defender. He gets himself in a lot of foul trouble. So, look, if you didn't have an Edwards like Verns doesn't, or if you were thinking, you know what, I'm going to go against the grain and not play it safe in this position, I think McGee could actually be a decent shout.
Yeah, and I guess something else I did mention earlier but didn't really think about there is I did mention about, obviously, Tatum's comment, and he did get looked after a bit this week. Is that going to roll over into another week? Good question.
Yeah, and I suppose he's only got that one game, so it's not like you get those 2 bites of the cherry as well, Vernsey. So that's a good point. Do you know what? I almost think it's easier this week if you don't own one of these 3, because you go, oh, I'll play those 2. When you've got the 3, it's really tough. I still don't know who I'm playing out of JLA, Edwards, and McGee. JLA's locked in for me, so he's my first lock, but really tossing and turning between the other 2.
If I had to be honest, I would put Edwards as my lock. If you had to pick Edwards one of the 3, I reckon Edwards is my lock. I reckon the matchups are too juicy for him. Like, JLA is still going into Harrison. And to be fair, Sydney haven't been very good against bigs either. But, yeah, I don't know. New Zealand and Brisbane, that just seems too good, like, for Edwards. I feel like he's going to go guarantee, like, minimum 50 points in at least one of those games. Again, I think that's worst case scenario.
Done. You've made my decision. Oh, it's going to be funny looking at my team without Big McGee in there. Oh no, I might get cold feet, but at this stage, I reckon I'm going to go with that. So yeah, it's a good question though. It's a really, really tough decision because we've got some good options in that center spot, and then we talk about the Menengas of the world as well. That's why they can't really get a look in when we've got blokes like this that we can choose from. Next one is from Dan's Dynamos. How are you, brother? Free throw for your life. You're picking Cooks or the big Taco. Now, you talked about, was it 1 out of 10 or something ridiculous from Xavier on the weekend? Boz, we'll start with you. Who are you going with? Are you going with Cooks or the big Taco? Bring him back and chuck him in a breaker singlet.
Well, as much as I didn't like Taco on the breakers, I might have to lock him in here because, just based on current form, Cooks cannot buy one to save himself. So, Taco for me. Taco Tuesday.
Taco Tuesday. Very, very well put. Vernsey, Cooks or Taco?
Oh, look, I'd probably just accept death at that point, but I'm going to have to go Taco, I guess.
I'd say I'm going to give Cooksy some love. He really looked after me this week. I know you blokes may be a little bit dirty on him, but I'm going to give Cooksy some love. So there's one for you at least, Xavier. Good on you, Dan. Thanks, mate. Next one, Gunner's a great GDS man, one of the biggest supporters in the GDS community. So shout out to you, mate. Prather versus Windler versus Cheatham. Who has the highest ceilings to target for the double? Ooh, we've talked a fair bit about all 3 of these players over the last few weeks. Would it be safe to say, lads, that Windler is the first lock out of these 3? Would anyone disagree with that for this week?
I would have Prather as my lock just because Brisbane don't have anyone. For example, if Freeman Liberty was still playing and he was back from injury, I wouldn't. I'd probably say Windler based on what we've seen. But Prather has to be number 1. Like they got smoked by 30 points and you put up a 50-plus GDS score. So I think if they want to be competitive this week in 1 or 2 of their games, he's going to have to put up something similar. So, Prather. I think that order, actually, the order in what the question is asked is pretty much the order I'd have him in for this week.
Very nice. Verns, anything different from you, mate?
No, I agree. I think I talked about how I feel like Cheatham's fallen off earlier. I'm not feeling it anymore, unfortunately. I think Prather's probably got the highest floor out of them all because we have already seen Windler drop a 13, but we've also seen him drop a 72. So, swings and roundabouts, you know?
That's a common term we use, isn't it? A very common term. All right, here we go. The ladies' man calls up Blackledge. Shout out to you, mate. Who has the highest potential out of Harrison, Edwards, JLA and McGee. Tricky week to narrow down the centre spot. I think we've pretty much talked about this, haven't we? Are we? Well, is anyone showing Harrison any love? So are we just sort of ruling him out at this? All right, so we're ruling out Harrison. So really, Edwards, JLA, McGee, we really discussed that with the previous question. But myself personally, I'm going to be now going with Edwards and JLA. Verns, if you own all three, who are the two you are going with?
Edwards, JLA.
All right, Boz, yourself?
It would be Edwards, JLA as well. Yeah. I'm a safe player. Well, yeah.
Either way, I think, look, Corsa, if you still want to give McGee some love, I don't think that's going to be the worst selection either, mate, because we've talked about his consistency. But, yeah, that's the way we're leaning at the moment, mate. All right. Next one from Corsa. Is it viable to play Harvey on a single? Now, we saw, two decent matches, one extremely good match from him last week. Boz, are you playing Harvey on the single in any of your formats this week?
I don't think he's currently in any of my teams. However, they don't have anyone else, as we've said many a times, to do anything. Yes, he's playing Sem, who are a defensive-minded team, and they do hold players to lowish scores. But we saw PJC still put up a 40-plus against them, albeit he, again, at New Zealand, he's the only player as well. But, Illawarra, chip on their shoulder. They've won a game. They're going to come into town wanting to win 2 in a row. They're going to have to heavily rely on Harvey. Is that going to be his detriment where he gets too many turnovers? We'll never know until the game. I wouldn't put it against you to play Harvey. Honestly, I wouldn't. I wouldn't put it against you. You got Cotton, it's so obvious, but then that second shooting guard spot, there's a debate. There's a couple of options that we can talk about. And if I look at one of my teams, just to kind of give you a sense of who, the only other one I have in all my teams is Bryce Hamilton from Tasmania. And that's purely because I like that safety sheet of the 2-game week. However, as we spoke about before, one of those games is against Sydney. Does Bull Quoll clamp him down? And then pretty much if that happens, it's a 1-game Harvey versus a 1-game Hamilton. And then you'd actually think that Harvey would score higher. So these are some of the things you've got to factor into your decision. So it is viable to play Harvey. But again, it's up to you as to whether you'd risk it.
That's a really good point, isn't it? A really good point. And that's something we need to look at with these doubles. What are the actual matchups? What's the schedule like? Because you may even just compare someone's double if they've got a tough matchup with someone's single who's got more of a decent matchup. So good call there. Vernsy, what are your thoughts on Tyler Harvey, mate? Particularly playing him on a single this week.
Yeah, well, look, I've actually got him in my starter team at the moment. I had locked him in, as you sort of mentioned. Him and McGee have to. They have to do it. If they don't, then nobody else is going to. And they don't have a deep bench either, in my opinion, Illawarra. So, they definitely have to. Saying that, in the contender comp, I do have Hamilton, but that is because he's a gold Hamilton. So
yes, nice. Gold Hamilton. So now we're talking, mate. Now we're talking picks, aren't we? I like that. All right. I think the last one here is from Mel's Misfit. So shout out to you, Mel. Statistically, how many players have had a big game and gone bigger in the double round? Now, I was trying to decipher this question before, and Boz, you did it perfectly. So I'm going to throw this one straight to you from Mel's Misfits, mate.
Yeah, so I think what I gathered from this question was it's kind of talking about how many players that are on the double are actually kind of going big twice in that week compared to maybe just going big once. So therefore, is it worth just pretending everyone's on a single and then looking at matchups purely? So I think from what I can gather, I looked at some of the statistics. I haven't got any data to back it up, but what I was seeing is a lot of players this season are actually being saved by only one of their games. So they're putting up one really big score and then one really poor score. So for example, Bryce Cotton on the weekend putting out a 70 in his first game and then only putting out, something in the 20s in his second game. So I think it's actually saving a lot of players on the double and making them look like more of a better option than what they actually are. So look, I don't disagree with the call that maybe we are just having to look at some people on their singles and looking at their matchup for that single and then hopefully getting a bigger score. Again, as I say, I play with safety. I like playing the guys on the double because it gives them 2 bites at the cherry. For example, last week, if Harvey had a single last week and it was against New Zealand, which is the great matchup, and he spat out the 40, I'd be happy, but I'd also be a bit disappointed. However, that double game, he then got the second bite of the cherry and pulls out an 86. And then I'm laughing. I'm thinking, I've told everyone on the podcast to pick Harvey. Look how great I am, blah, blah, blah. How good's this? Whereas if it was only a single and I was saying that, I'd look like a bit of an idiot, wouldn't I? So I think there's pros and cons to it. Again, it comes down to how risky you want to play things. I personally would actually back in players on the double, whereas I know some other players have probably won a week so far because they've backed in people on the single. So, yeah, it's a tricky one.
Yeah, so it comes down a bit to personal strategy, I guess, there, doesn't it, Verns? How do you sort of see this? What's your strategy when it comes to this scenario?
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm pretty emotional, so it goes week to week for me. I mean, look, another play we can use an example for, Milton Doyle this week drops a 9 in one game, drops a 55 in the other. Like, it's very obvious that having 2 games is an advantage purely off the safety net. Saying that, there's definitely been weeks where I've picked a player that had 2 poor single two poor games, and then there's some guy on the single that's had a great game, and I just sit there and be like, you know what, just need to pick up matchups, don't need to worry about the doubles, so it is hard to judge. I think one of those was like McGee on his single, though, where he drops like 80 points, and you're running someone like a Harrison who gets 40 off 2 games, and you're just like, okay, cool, bro. So, yeah, I think it's very matchup related. I think the only time we're really splitting it is like if you're looking at 2 players and you can't really split them, and one of them's playing 2 games that week, you're probably just playing the guy on 2 games, Even this week with McGee on the single, I'm still I don't own an Edwards, so like I'm picking McGee, but I'm picking him over Harrison, over Meninga, because I feel safer with what he's doing than these guys that have doubles. But he's probably a great example of someone that if he's on the single and he's got a good matchup, there's a good chance you're still playing him. So...
Great point. So, yeah, hopefully I think that's been a pretty good answer for you, Mel. It comes down a bit of personal strategy, looking at the matchups as well. There's a fair bit that goes into the melting pot here of GDS and strategy. So I think, lads, that is the end of the mailbag. So beautiful job there. And again, thanks to anyone that sent through their questions. So we'll finish off, lads, with showing off our squads. Now, I've got mine ready to come onto the stage here. I'll just get it up. This is obviously my starter squad. So we're going to be rolling with McVeigh, JLA in that center spot, as I mentioned, Windler, Davis, and Cotton. And then the next 5 rolling up to the side will be Prather, Cooks, PJC. What a man last week. Jesse Edwards, and then Bryce Hamilton. So that is my starter squad. And I do need to give a big shout out as well to my brother Janath. He did send me a nice early birthday present with some silvers and some gold GDS cards. So I can start to dabble into the contender, which would be very, very nice. So looking forward to that. I also have some packs of cards. So what we might do, I might leave them right towards the end, and we'll get you guys to get your squads up. So do you guys want to, anyone want to go first in particular, Verns or Boz? Anyone keen to get theirs ready and start showing off what you're doing for the week?
Yeah, I mean, I don't mind throwing mine up. I think last time we did this, me and Boz had the same squad, so I'll get there first this time. Thank you.
All right, I like that. So we'll get Vernsy's up to the mix. So I'll just remove my one there. It's interesting to see, isn't it? And a lot of it does come down, as we know, to what cards you actually own. So you said you need an Edwards, didn't you, Verns?
Yep.
We need to get you an Edwards. I reckon we can absolutely do that. So we'll get you an Edwards for sure. We'll lock that one in for you, buddy. Yep. All right. I'm keen to see this. Now, what competition is this, mate? Is this just your starter that we're
This is the starter team. Yeah, just the starter team. Pretty similar picks across the board to you as well. I think difference is I'm running John Brown as my power forward. I'm very excited for him. And then I'm also running Tyler Harvey as a shooting guard over Hamilton. As I said, I just think this man just feels so reliable. I don't even care it's one game. I think we'll be pretty solid there. So I think outside of that, all the other picks are the same between us. Of course, sorry, I'm running McGee and you're running Edwards as well. I don't own an Edwards, so I'm really picking McGee.
Mate.
jump to the contender, which has a bit more fun in it. Last week I did run a gold Bryce Hamilton and a gold Sobey. I'll be honest, before we actually jumped on for the pod, I went stuff it, jumped into the market, found a Bryce, somebody wanted to Prather for it, and I had like 5, so I was like, I'm getting a second Bryce. I need a second Bryce. So I've brought Bryce in. Look, I always planned on running a bronze here. But I think that ended up being a bit awkward for me. I don't even remember who I had. I think I had a Mason Jones because I just didn't have a Bryce or any other good shooting guards. But yeah, I've got Bryce there. I've got Hamilton as a gold, which is nice. Once again, McGee, JLA. This time I've brought Cooks back into the I did run Cooks last week in contender with the silver, so that was a positive.
Oh, good. Yes, nice.
Actually, no, I'm lying. I ran him last week as a bronze, so I didn't run him as a silver, but I did at least run him.
Well, you had him there. He contributed to the score, which is good.
Yeah, and then we got the Winler. I pulled the silver KD just before as well. Obviously, you guys are talking about some pack openings. I didn't think a one-card pack opening would be relevant, but then popping KD felt pretty relevant. So
magnificent.
Yeah. And then, unfortunately, I've got Josh Bannon at the moment, and I just don't know how I feel about this. I've got to be honest, like, when I look at the players I've got, it's like the Noise up there, Krislovich is up there. I don't want to touch Doolittle again. He's hurt my feelings. And the rest of these players, nobody's jumping out to me. I just decided to lock in Joshy Bannon. I do think he does have a good fixture though this week. I'm pretty sure he's got New Zealand in one of his matchups. Yeah, there we go. So feel pretty confident he should be able to do well in at least one of these matchups. The 17 looks bad, but he did get in foul trouble and not really play much in this game, so it was unfortunate. I think that happened both games this week.
I like it, Vernsy. A bit of gold, a bit of silver, and a bit of bronze sprinkled across the team here. So I think you could be in for a very, very nice week, my friend. Fantastic stuff. All right, Boz, time for you to get your team up, my brother, and see what you're doing in your competitions this week. Now, you're sort of going from the starter all the way up to the classic at the moment, aren't you, mate?
Yes, yeah. So I'll go through all 3 of those teams really quickly. The starter is very similar to both Verns and yourself, DR. I think the only difference to your team, DR, is John Brown, and the only difference to your team, Verns, is I think Hamilton instead of Harvey, and then JLA or one of the centers, Edwards, as opposed to McGee.
Yeah.
Yep.
The only thing I'm thinking here is maybe taking out Hamilton and playing a Harvey. Because I'm not playing McGee, I'd like to risk maybe one player on a single. So maybe, Harvey becomes Hamilton. That's the only change I'd probably make, to be honest. But I think this will be a very common team, and I wouldn't be surprised if we had some very similar overall winners this week in terms of like 3 or 4 blokes winning it at the same score, just based on the team that they put out.
Yeah, it's a good point.
Yeah, in the contender, I've obviously prioritized. I didn't put a gold in this week. So traditionally, I've been putting 3 silvers and a gold. I think it's 4 silvers and a gold and the rest bronze. I'm just trying to change the strategy this week and see if playing 5 silvers, I don't know, just seeing if it's any different. So the silvers I'm running is going to be Prather, who I think should go big. Kendrick Davis, I'm going to back in for a bit of a return week this week. Cotton, of course. Bryce Hamilton currently, based on the fact that I don't actually have any other silvers that I like, and then Dylan Windler, and then just some bronzes that are very similar to my starter team: Edwards, PJC, John Brown, Cooks, and JLA. So a very similar team. Also, what I find difficult is because I have a classic team, I need to kind of save some silvers and golds as well to try to make this my main team. I'm really enjoying trying to battle in this comp. So I've kind of saved like my Xavier Cooks and PJC silvers for this team. I don't know if people saw on Twitter, but I packed a Bryce Hamilton Platinum in my Podmasters rewards last week. So that really helped.
That's unreal, man.
Me there. So I'm going to put him in this week. Windler gold, JLA gold, and then the only thing I'm not happy with is I don't have another small forward silver. So if I could pack something tonight, that'd be great. But at the moment, it's Lopez. He's the only, Andrew Little, sorry. These 2 are my only concerns. And even Adams, to be honest, looking at my team now, it's actually, these 3 are really concerning. But who knows? These 2 could bounce back. Doolittle and Adams could bounce back. But I just don't have anyone in that position to fill to make the team up. So yeah, hopefully in my packs I can get something. Do you want me to open my pack now?
Yeah, mate. Let's get it. This is my part of my favorite part of the game is just the pack openings, seeing what happens here. So
Yeah,
I'm excited, mate. Come on, knock out something.
This is my single common pack, so no flair. That's okay. A gold though it seems. Okay, I don't know who you are.
A future star, hopefully. A future star.
We'll skip straight past that one. This is my 3-player common pack.
All right,
no
here we go.
Flair again. So we got a silver, and a silver. No gold.
That's all right. That's all right.
No, and no. Great pack opening.
Well, look.
Sorry,
no
you're pretty stacked already.
Luck this time. But you look at the other pack openings that you've had, you have done pretty well, mate. So
yeah.
All right, I'll jump onto mine then. So go to packs. I think I've got the 1 single and then the 3 pack. All right, so no fancy animations here. We have it's a silver. Who is it? Oh,
ooh,
there
nice.
we go, Cooksy. So that's going to be very, very handy for my side, actually. Xavier Cook silver there. So, yeah, fantastic. A 1 from 1 there. Very, very nice. All right, we need some sort of animation. Oh, there's something going on
here. Got
a
platinum in there.
All right, so I think that's silver. Now,
that's the platy in the middle.
The plat's in the middle. And then a gold. So, geez, not too bad. All right, so we'll go silver, plat, gold. We've got Angus Glover. So, no sort of superstar. Bruce again, no superstar. This is the big one, boys. Come on. A nice PJC or someone. Oh,
Jesse Edwards.
Ooh, that is massive.
That is a great pull.
Oh, boys.
Well deserved.
Thank you very much, my friend. Now, this is obviously straight to the top of my card list. The best card that I own. And Edwards, now we've talked about his matchup this week. Wowee.
Unfortunately, can't use them in contender, but still very nice.
Can you make a classic team where you haven't got enough golds and silvers?
Do you know what? I think I probably could. I might actually have a crack at the classic this week. I might have a crack at the classic, I think. But I'll tell you what, no complaints with that pack opening, boys. And that just goes to show, not to bloody rub it in at all, Boz, but you see, we had the same amount of cards to open then. I got a couple of, Cook's gun, but let's just say a couple of guns, and Boz didn't luck out that much. But hey, sometimes you win, sometimes you lose with this game. But boys, absolutely cracking podcast again. We've gone for just over an hour and 20 minutes. That's pretty impressive given the fact there were double the amount of games last week. And Boz, I reckon we went for a good hour and 10 last week, mate. So I think time-wise, we have done pretty well. But Vernsy, anything massive going on for you in your life for the rest of the week, mate, before the start of the round tomorrow night?
Oh, no, nothing really for start of the round. I'm excited for it. I'm excited to keep track of the blitz as well. I think New Zealand started off with 7 points in their first game, so maybe they'll be able to win that.
The Ignite Cup.
Yeah, Ignite Cup. There we go.
Yeah.
Let me tell you, Jesse Edwards, we're going to get you at minimum a bronze, mate. We're going to get you at minimum a Jesse Edwards bronze because you need to add that to your squad because he's your number 1 center for the week. You do need to own him. So all the best this week for all of your teams and in life, brother. Boz, any news, mate? Anything major happening for the rest of the week or just business as usual and another top 20 contender classic type finish for you?
Well, fingers crossed. I think, I only got the 1 top 20 finish this week, so I'd like a couple more this week. But no, business as usual. Looking forward to some midweek basketball. NBA's around the corner, so keep your minds posted for some stuff I'll put out on X around maybe the NBA Supercoach landscape if you're keen to do that. But nothing else from me. Just keen for another week of good basketball.
Love it, mate. Well, guys, thank you as always for tuning in. Really appreciate your support. Got a fantastic community. Remember to head over to the Discord. You can make some trades, get to know the community. And you know what happened with Boz last time? A couple of nice freebies in there just for entering the chat. So really encourage that. And again, really important. In order to get $20 worth of free packs, if you don't mind, and be able to open some common packs like we just did before, when you first sign up to GDS, put in the code word United, UNITED, when you first sign up and verify, and you'll get some of those free packs delivered straight to your account, and you can open them and get as excited, hopefully, as what we just did then. So thanks again, guys. All the best, and look forward to catching you again next week. Cheers, guys. Bye.